Welcome. My name is Laurel Peterson, and I'm a professor here at Norwalk Community College and the current Poet Laureate of Norwalk. Welcome to Writers Resist, Norwalk, Connecticut. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here to listen, to participate, and to celebrate all of the voices that create our democracy. The flagship Writers Resist event, co-sponsored by PEN America, was held on January 15th, 2017, just prior to the inauguration. PEN America, just so you know who they are, stands at the intersection of literature and human rights to protect free, open expression in the United States and worldwide. It champions the freedom to write, recognizing the power of the word to transform the world. Its mission is to unite writers and their allies to celebrate creative expression and to defend the liberties that make it possible. Prominent writers, including American Poets Laureate Robert Pinsky and Rita Dove, gathered on the steps of the New York Public Library to re-inaugurate, their commitment to the fundamental principles of democracy. Those gathered here today have expressed their desire to do the same. Each speaker will read for 5 minutes. We ask that when you finish, you announce the next speaker up, and I have provided you with a program so that you can do that. We ask that the audience hold its applause until each speaker has finished reading. Some of them are reading more than one short piece. And before we begin, I want to thank Norwalk Mayor Harry Rilling and NCC President David Levinson for their support of this event, both and for my support of my role as Poet Laureate, which makes it possible for me to initiate projects like this. Also to my colleagues, Rebecca Hussey and Rick McGee, who made putting this event together really easy. Thank you. And to all of you who came to listen and participate. Your voices make democracy possible. So I'm not going to read the whole piece, but I thought that I would read the last few lines of W.H. Auden's poem, September 1st, 1939, which seems to speak to our theme here today. Defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies. Yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light flash out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of eros and dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. Like that. Okay, so first up is Mayor Harry Rilling, but President David Levinson is going to introduce him for us. Please welcome.
Thank you, Laurel. It's my pleasure to introduce our mayor, Harry Rilling, who has taught at NCC, who has attended school at NCC, who has been incredibly supportive of the mission of the college, and we are really honored to partner with the community of Norwalk. So, Mayor Rilling, please. And Mayor Rilling, let me give you a proper introduction. We'll read from the final Emancipation Proclamation by Abraham Lincoln, dated January 1st, 1863. Mayor Rilling.
For those of us in the audience who have to wear their cheaters, I'm putting mine on now. Thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Levinson. Thank you, Laurel Peterson, for doing this. This is really remarkable. Thank you all for being here. I selected the final Emancipation Proclamation from Abraham Lincoln because he is probably one of my all-time favorite persons. Whenever I see anything about him, I try to read up on it, and I think he was probably the greatest president ever, who came from some very, very humble means, and as we all know, was a self-taught individual. And we were talking about things that related to democracy. And when I selected the Emancipation Proclamation, I thought in terms of the framers of the Constitution, from the Declaration of Independence, where the most powerful words ever written by founding fathers of a country, I believe, were contained. And that was something that goes like this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among those being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And nothing speaks greater to that than the the Emancipation Proclamation. So the Emancipation Proclamation was a presidential proclamation, an executive order issued by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863. It purported to change the federal legal status of more than 3 million enslaved people in the designated areas of the South, from slave to free. Although its immediate effect was less, it had the practical effect that as soon as a slave escaped the control of the Confederate government by running away or through advances of federal troops, the slave became legally free. Eventually, it reached and liberated all of the designated slaves. It was issued as a war measure during the American Civil War, directed to all areas in rebellion in all segments of the executive branch, including the Army, Navy, and the Navy of the United States. So it begins. January 1st, 1863, by the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. Whereas on the 22nd day of September, in the year of our Lord, 1862, a proclamation was issued by the President of the United States containing, among other things, the following to wit: that on the first day of January, in the year of our Lord, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. And the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons or any of them in any efforts they make for their actual freedom. That the executive will, on the first day of January aforesaid, by proclamation, designate the state and parts of states, if any, in which the people thereof respectively shall be in rebellion against the United States, and the fact that any state or the people thereof shall on that day be, in good faith, represented in the Congress of the United States by members chosen thereto at elections wherein a majority of the qualified voters of such state shall have participated, shall in the absence of strong countervailing testimony be deemed conclusive evidence that such state and people thereof are not then in rebellion against the United States. Now therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, by virtue of the power in me vested as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States, in time of actual armed rebellion against the authority and government of the United States, and as a fit and necessary war measure for suppressing said rebellion, do on this first day of January, the year of our Lord, 1863, and in accordance with my purpose so to do publicly, proclaimed for the full period of 100 days, from the day first above mentioned, ordered and designate as the states and parts of states, wherein the people thereof respectively, are this day in rebellion against the United States, the following to wit: Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, except the parishes of St. Bernard, Plaquemines, Jefferson, St. John's, St. Charles, St. James, Ascension, Assumption, Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Mary, St. Martin, and Orleans, including the city of New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, except the 48 counties designated as West Virginia, and also the counties of Berkeley, Accomack, Northampton, Elizabeth City, York, Princess Anne, and Norfolk, including the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth, and which accepted parts are for the present left precisely as if this proclamation were not issued. And by virtue of the power and for the purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are and henceforward shall be free, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons. I hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from all violence unless in necessary self-defense, and I recommend to them that, in all cases when allowed, they labor faithfully for reasonable wages. And I further declare and make known that such persons of suitable condition will be received into the armed services of the United States to garrison forts, positions, stations, and other places, and to man vessels of all sorts in said service. And upon this act, sincerely believed to be an act of justice warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity, I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind and the gracious favor of Almighty God. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the United States to be affixed, done at the city of Washington, this first day of January in the year of our Lord, 1863, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 87th, by the President Abraham Lincoln. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce my good friend and the president of Norwalk Community College, a wonderful president, by the way, who I've known for quite some time and have shared many wonderful moments and meetings with, and I know the good job that he does, Dr. David Levinson.
Thank you, Mayor, for that very kind introduction. First, I want to thank Laurel, Peterson, and Rebecca Hussey for organizing today's event. Also, want to do a little infomercial for our beautiful literary magazine, Musings. And we have the editor of Musings here, who will be reading to us later. So please, if you have a copy, please pick it up. Okay, I'm going to read from a book called Eclipse of Reason that was written by Max Horkheimer in 1947. A little bit of background, Max Horkheimer was part of what is called the Frankfurt School of Social Theory. He and his school resided in Germany prior to the Holocaust and migrated out of Germany really just in the nick of time so that they were not executed. And they ended up in the New School for Social Research in New York City and wrote a voluminous amount of work. People like Theodor Adorno, Jürgen Habermas is more the contemporary person, and have a lot of prophetic things, I think, to say about what is happening today. So the title, Eclipse of Reason, which I think is very poignant, says a lot. So I will do, I guess, 5 minutes of readings. Please cut me short. I could read this for hours, but I only wrote a few pages. And suggest that you pick up a copy of this book. It's on Amazon for $9.95. I can check that. Eclipse of Reason. Quote, at the moment of this writing, the peoples of the democratic nations are confronted with the problems of consummating their victory of arms in 1947. They must work out and put into practice the principles of humanity in the name of which the sacrifices of war were made. We're still at war, in case you haven't noticed. The present potentialities of social achievement surpass the expectations of all the philosophers and statesmen who have ever outlined in utopian programs the idea of a truly human society. Yet there is a universal feeling of fear and disillusionment. The hopes of mankind and womankind and peoplekind seem to be farther from fulfillment today than they were even in the groping epochs when they were first formulated by humanists. It seems that even as technical knowledge expands, the horizons of man's and women's thought and activity, our autonomy as an individual, our ability to resist the growing apparatus of mass manipulation, our power of imagination, our independent judgment appear to be reduced. Advance in technical facilities for enlightenment is accompanied by a process of dehumanization. Thus, progress threats to nullify the very goal it is supposed to realize, the idea of humans. Whether this situation is a necessary phase in the general ascent of society as a whole, or whether it will lead to a victorious reemergence of the neo-barbarianism recently defeated on the battlefields, depends at least in part on our ability to interpret accurately the profound changes now taking place in the public mind and in human nature. Reason has never really directed social reality, but now reason has been so thoroughly purged of any specific trend or preference that it has finally renounced even the task of passing judgment on man's actions and way of life. Reason has turned them over for ultimate sanction to the conflicting interests to which our world actually seems abandoned. The relegation of reason to a subordinate position is in sharp contrast to the ideas of the pioneers of bourgeois civilization, the spiritual and political representations of the rising middle class, who are unanimous in declaring that reason plays a leading role in human behavior, perhaps even the predominant role. They defined a wise legislature as one whose laws conform to reason. National and international policies were judged according to whether they followed the lines of reason. Reason was supposed to regulate our preferences and our relations with other human beings and with nature. It was thought of as an entity, a spiritual power, living in each man. This power was held to be the supreme arbiter, nay more, the creative force behind the ideas and things to which we should devote our lives. And just one final passage that I'll read. Concepts have become streamlined, rationalized, labor-saving devices. It is as if thinking itself has been reduced to the level of industrial processes, subjected to a close schedule, in short, made part and parcel of production. So this, which was written in 1947, I think is very prophetic for today. It's now my pleasure to introduce Lisa Pierce Flores from Fairfield University, who will read from her own work.
Hi. Okay. So I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction toward more personal, but first I'm going to go back in history just a little bit. Several years ago, I wrote a book called The History of Puerto Rico, and anyone who's familiar with the history of the island of Puerto Rico, which the UN has called the oldest colony in the world, and is familiar with its relationship with the United States dating back to 1898, you can't really learn this history and then not come away from this with a little bit more of a perhaps muddy view of what we think of as democracy. I'm going to do a couple poems here that are responses to Puerto Rican poet Julia de Burgos. She was a nationalist. She fought for the independence of Puerto Rico so that it would not be what it is now, which is still an unaffiliated territory of the United States. So technically, though it's called the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and there were some reforms that took place in the 1940s, there is still a lack of representation for the people of Puerto Rico, much like there is a lack of representation for the people of the District of Columbia in America. So in 1943, nationalist, feminist, journalist, and poet Julia de Burgos was working for the federal government in Washington, D.C. when she was interrogated about her political beliefs and affiliations, and was then terminated from her job. And so I say that right now, a lot of federal employees are finding themselves in the same exact position. I'm going to read a quote from one of her poems called, which she called to Juliet de Burgos, and then I'm going to read my response to that in a series of poems which I called I Resist Memoir. So this is her words. When the multitudes run rioting, leaving behind ashes of burned injustices, and with the torch of the 7 virtues, the multitudes run after the 7 sins. Against you and against everything unjust and inhuman, I will be in their midst with the torch in my hand. Memoir 1. I'm really short. Okay, Memoir 1. We are not welcome here. A small town, and at the center of everything, the university. Stately, alien, serene. Perhaps our parents kept it clean. We will not be welcome there, and so we will need to wander elsewhere to find our fun, to side street shops displayed to taunt. All we want we cannot have. We stride the parallel tracks of sidewalks, quaintly cobbled and cracked, ankles twisting, no time to stop, our cheap shoes slippery, buffing skin into blisters, the slender straps cutting soles, split open, our blood leaking out upon a labyrinth designed to keep us guessing, designed to keep us out. Memoir 2, We Seek Sanctuary. Rising up to meet America, a dream in retreat, where lovers meet and sway, bare feet seek refuge. A patch of scalloped lawn, breach of hedgerow, uninvited to this feast of foliage. Scavenging for whatever boxwood can hide, and I can never find. I come so close each night discarded, morning scatters the moment, never quite enough beauty, perhaps, or courage to reach a sanctuary of arms. 10 years after de Burgos lost her job due to her politics, and shortly before her death at the age of 39, she famously asked, "Where is the voice of freedom?" in her final poem, Farewell from Welfare Island. In this poem, she refers to her poetry as her cry into the world. I'm going to read this poem that I wrote on a night when I was feeling very isolated and alone in the suburbs. It's kind of my cry. So it's called No Friend to Puerto Rican Hair. The suburban rain is no friend to Puerto Rican hair. You're out late again, I guess, at work. The air aching for the relief that comes with storm showers at dusk, and the suburb smell of earwax and lighter fluid because it's late summer in New England. A rare rationing of social obligation, warmed over desire and neglected yard work, every bed a compost heap. Let me begin again. Tonight, the suburbs are barely hanging on, and I'm walking on rotten eggshells. You keep forgetting. I grew up half Puerto Rican, passing for poor white trash, just outside enough to recognize your insider envy when I see it. Just inside enough to know the difference. To clarify, to clarify, I am what I am not, and I am not what I appear to be. Good wife, good boss, good friend, good guest, adept, provider of the tastefully prepared side dish, holding back the secret ingredient. I need to be clear, because tonight the suburbs have something to say. The air readies itself for the storm. It wants to stir things up, break into cursing, break the silence. I want to break the silence. I am breaking the silence. I am breaking open. I am broken. I thought I'd learned how to get along. Somehow I grew up mixed up, trumped by whiteness, Tag, you're it. You're one of us. And now, squinting into mirrors, I see the traces, the scars of a war I'll never win. Why do I still bother to straighten, highlight, conceal, try to blend? If I look close enough into the bathroom mirror, I see my family scattered in patches of pigment, a firmament stretched over aging cheekbones, mercifully high, a gift from my grandmother. Her other gift, an explosion of vitiligo, a matching set, teardrops or starbursts, one under each eye. Tonight, I just can't stand being her, suburban girl, team player, so complacently Puerto Rican you'd never even know. They mean this as a compliment. Tonight, the wind stirs the rotting leaves and sets me stalking my own hunger from room to empty room, fingering bowls of overripe fruit, turned decorative, destined for removal. I pace through the house, opening doors and windows, waiting it out, weighted down by August air in this summer dusk, and know that this is my time. I need to make you understand. I prefer this storm-filled end of days, the tension of this muted sky. When you come home, I'll be waiting to wrap you in ancient arms, hungry as freckled ripe fruit, flowing with the blood of the Taino, my ancestors, the Taino, still lamenting their welcome, still mourning their lost, their land, Boricua, these Americas. When you come home, I'll try to tell you about the windows and the heavy summer rain and the air and the storms still to come. My Puerto Rican hair, about how I still find myself lamenting the loss of my beloved America, where my people have lived for these past thousands of years, and where I feel I must hide to remain safe, tolerated. When you come home, you'll ask why I left the windows open, and I'll try to make you understand. Forget about the rain, I'll say, the damage done, and listen, my love, to the leaves, gently stirring, breaking free from their compost coffins, releasing their odor of earth into the stillness of this one final moment before the storm obliterates their dance and something new grows from the ruins. I get to introduce Sonia Huber, which is so exciting because she's amazing.
Hi, my name is Sonia. I also teach at Fairfield U, and I'm really happy this event is happening. This is awesome. I have a new book out called Pain Woman Takes Your Keys, and it's about chronic pain. So if you like weird essays about chronic pain, you could look that up. But I'm actually going to read a short thing from my first book, which is called Opa Nobody. And it's about my German grandfather, who was a socialist and labor activist in Germany, as was my great-grandfather. And so I wrote this book. I never knew him, but I wrote this book to imagine a conversation with him because I was having a hard time as an activist in my late 20s and early 30s. So this is kind of a conversation in my head with my grandfather, whose name was Heine. Heine, I wonder if you felt what I did, an almost spiritual sense of peace and possibility when first watching a demonstration being planned. At my small private college in Minnesota, I found myself in a rust-orange seat in the student lounge for my first meeting of the campus public interest research group, started years before by Ralph Nader. An organizer flipped sheets on a big pad of paper and asked us what we wanted to accomplish on campus. She listened to us and made a list with a big black marker. Then we worked through our options as she showed us how to take these broad goals and break them down into manageable parts and campaigns. I fell in love in that instant with her long black hair, her Chinese-Irish round and freckled face, in love with her addictive courage and competence and daring. She was Pippi Longstocking with a clipboard, We drew a calendar, we made a strategy chart, and we were off. Strangely enough, it's still impossible for me to disconnect the alcohol solvent smell of a permanent marker from the hope of liberation. I was shy, but I had always loved story problems in math classes. And these charts were nothing more than story problems, games of the imagination where you charted possibilities, focused your resources, and then leapt out into an unsuspecting world. Before you knew it, we were collecting petitions to save Minnesota forests, and I'd organized a panel discussion. People came to talk, ideas snapping in the air, letters written, further plans made. The nuclear family had been a poor approximation of this drug of purposeful closeness, and I'm still baffled by anyone who fails to be intoxicated, who steers clear of the temptation to alter external reality. I will always try to reach back and share this drug with my younger self. Forever after, when I yell at a demonstration, a small part of me is trying to reach a girl I imagine is a block away, wondering what all the noise and picket signs are about. I know she's sitting in her mom's '83 Cutlass with the windows down, waiting for the stoplight to change, waiting to turn 18 so the mystery of her life will start. She's picking glitter fingernail polish off her gnawed-down nails. She's got a squinting and sad look to her eyes because she doesn't know how to get out of this boxed-in life, because everything is so scary and the world might end any day now. Sandra, Monique, Cara, Betsy, if you come to our party, you can make some noise, and sometimes people actually listen. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ralph Nazareth, who will read his own work.
I must speak faster than an Indian normally does, because so much to say, so little time, so little time. It's much less time than we imagine we have. The world is ending. I taught poetry in schools, and in 1987, a 10-year-old wrote the following poem. I still remember it. This is how it goes. Please pay close attention, it's very short. The rainbow has separated. The animals have died. Kill, 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 says he. There is no earth, there is no sky, there is nothing. She is a 43-year-old woman now, somewhere walking around in Norwalk or Stanford. I'm sure I won't recognize her. Max Horkheimer and the Emancipation Proclamation, I would summarize them as simply being witness on the one hand and love on the other. That's what I'm going to pitch this brief reading into. So a long time ago, when I first came to this country, I came in possession of this advertisement which says, you can erase your foreign accent. And after all these years, this is still relevant, and more relevant than I would like to admit. Simply call. All you need to do is simply call 818-ENG-LISH. All you need have is $49.95. We accept Visa and diners, MC and carte blanche. All you need do is simply call. All you need have is, yes, all you need have is a pigeon of shame. Our powerful tools can wipe out your accent. Our lightning sorties can soften you up. We can blitz out your tongue, the big and the little, the clicks and the glitches, your gulps and your guttural, your peculiar inflections, the roll and the lilt, those tortuous twitches. We can erase them all, your lips and her lips, her tongue and your mouth. Let them dissolve in the sound universal, this taste homogeneous, the salt of your words, the silt of a speech. Leave it to us, we'll handle it all, erasing every single odd variation of your mind and her body, your heart and her soul. Whatever makes you and her. We'll pluck out the very roots of your singular devotions. So you'll speak our holy Catholic American of one and the sameness. Deface, efface, debunk, erase, eradicate, exterminate. All you need do is dial 818-ENG-LISH. All we need have is your carte blanche. We can do it. Yes, sure. We can do it all. Simply call. I said between witness and love. So I'll go to this other poll, which is what witnessing and resistance is all about. That we need to have the room and the space and the time to love as a community like this. Parallel lives bend and meet at the turning point of love. The river once seeded their fish, watered their fields, yearly bore their brides. These people, cradled in its moist green bed, were thankful for its gifts of earth and life. They were no friendly with their gods than we with ours. Like you and me, they lived their lives in a state of confusion, sometimes of sadness, often of joy. They worked hard for their bread and wine, felt proud, wrote songs of love. Noise got on their nerves. They ate too much at times and worried a little about death. They swatted their children and, like some of us, later showered them with dainty dolls of clay. They kept meticulous accounts, wondered at the stars, and brooded over the marshes. Their barges and skiffs, scraping and clattering in their cattail moorings, filled them with a longing for journeys. They told endless stories of a great flood and murmured rumors of the fire to come. They were also rich in secrets. Do not look for love, said one. It will come to you, ancient and changeless its face, strange its ways. The darkness of secrets spoke of the mating of flesh, but for a price. A dozen choice cows, and sometimes the flower of one's harem. Marry, one whispered, not as a bride to a groom, a husband to a wife, not as a child to a parent or a parent to a child, but as a friend to a friend. Another intoned, come by way of water, come by way of light, come by way of promise, come by way of the body, and rest in the house of silence. Their eyes were large, and around their lips danced pleasure and a sense of hope. From travelers' accounts, they gather still like shining grain at the turning point of love. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Joanne Santilla and Rene, editor of Musings.
I'm reading from Plato on Democracy. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read a few. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Come then, tell me, dear friend, how tyrantry arises. This it is, an outgrowth of democracy is clearly plain. Yes, plain. It is then, in a sense, in the same way in which democracy arises out of oligarchy, that tyrantry arises from democracy. How is that? The good that they propose to themselves, and that is the cause of the establishment of oligarchy. It is wealth, was it not? Yes. Well then, the insatiate lust of wealth and the neglect of everything else for the sake of money-making were the cause of his undoing. True, he said. And is not the avidity of democracy for that which it is its definition and citation of good the thing which dissolves into? What do you say is citation to be? Liberty. I replied, for you may hear it said, and this is best managed in a democratic city. And for this reason, that is the only city in which a man of free spirit will care to live. Well, yes, he replied, you hear that saying everywhere. Then, as I am about to observe, is it not the excessive greed of this and neglect of all things that revolutionizes this constitution too and prepares the way to the necessity of a dictatorship? How, he said. Why? When a democratic city archives for liberty gets bad cupbearings for its leaders and is intoxicated by drinking too deep of that unmixed wine, and then, if its so-called governors are not extremely mild and gentle with it and do not dispense of the liberty unsteadily, it chastises them and accuses them of being accused oligarchy. Yes, that is what they do, he replied. But those who obey the rulers, I say, it reviles as willing slaves and the men of not, but it commands and honors in public and private rulers who resemble subjects and subjects who are like rulers. It is not invincible that is such a spite of a state of spirit of liberty should go to all lengths, of course. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Joanne Dobson, novelist. Yes. I'm sorry about that.
Hi. Two poems, one by Walt Whitman, something that I've never seen yet until this week, something that will sound extremely contemporary in the sense of our time to you. To the states, to identify the 16th, 17th, or 18th presidentiad, why reclining? Interrogating. Why myself and all drowsing? What deepening twilight scum floating atop of the waters? Who are they as bats and night dogs askant in the Capitol? What a filthy presidentiad! O South, your torrid suns, O North, your Arctic freezings. Are these really congressmen? Are those the great judges? Is that the president? Then I will sleep a while yet, for I see that these states sleep for reasons, with gathering murk, with muttering thunder and lambent shoots, we all duly awake. South, north, east, west, inland and seaboard, we will surely awake. So from going into America's past, I go into my own past. This poem I wrote in the 1970s when I was a few years younger than I am now, and when the women's movement was a few years younger than it is now, and when we really were not certain who women were. This is a poem in two voices. Night and day to cruise the streets in my high red boots, screwing all the sullen gang, learning to smoke the cigarette hanging from my lip like another fang. This is the silent me, This one knows death, reads the papers, thrives on rape, but she is apocryphal. In my body, still blood spills through ordinary veins with its accustomed clamor. I am addicted to the long, narrow halls of museums, bodies squeezed in frames, the left hand severed, the forehead split in cochineal and black. In a domestic life, disaster multiplies. The blue bowl cracks, the staple clips the thumb. But that one, she is innocent. She would never leave the house. She polishes her silver for a thrill. Read the papers, folks, read them. Planes crash, motels burn, and worse. Who can speak with a knife in the lung? Balancing cups on a metal tray with her Lucrezia Borgia eyes, the waitress smiles. Even Howard Johnson's takes a turn for the sinister. Should I drink my coffee now? Folks, this is a vicious century. The horrendous possibility lurks in the corridor, picking its teeth and whistling. Are you prepared? The plump matron in the pink Sunday dress is oogling the Picassos. If she could see what I see, she would come out of here in pieces. Like me, she would come out of here with one eye, blue-lipped, a hag. The other one, she is afraid. She pours her coffee in a glass. She shakes it, studies it, gives it to me to taste. She takes no risks, sipping slowly, sitting with her back to no doors. But never mind, she is not safe. She still has dreams. Around her, she gathers her scraps of comfort, Mozart and Donne, the green trees that grow tall and strong, that live for years and years, the reoccurring sun, white wine in an amber glass, peace, solitude. Never mind. Here I come again with my stiletto heels, my third breast, the snake that coils on my own split tongue. She is not safe. Her face splinters and turns green. There is a small lump in her neck. Already her feet hurt. Where will they take her now, dancing these red and vicious shoes? I wrote that a long time ago. It hasn't been out of my drawer in about 30 years. You are the first audience. I'd like to welcome Casey Guerin, Norwalk English Department, reading Imagine the Angels of Bread.
Hi, thank you. I'm really excited to be here, so thank you for organizing it. It's hard to find some hope and excitement right now, I think. And I write mostly fiction, but I've been turning more to poetry. So I'm going to read a poem, Imagine the Angels of Bread by Martin Espada. This is the year that squatters evict landlords, gazing like admirals from the rail of the roof deck, or levitating hands in praise of steam in the shower. This is the year that shawled refugees deport judges who stare at the floor and their swollen feet as files are stamped with their destination. This is the year that police revolvers, stove hot, blister their fingers of raging cops, and nightsticks splinter in their palms. This is the year that dark-skinned men lynched a century ago return to sip coffee quietly with the apologizing descendants of their executioners. This is the year that those who swim the border's undertow and shiver in boxcars are greeted with trumpets and drums at the first railroad crossing on the other side. This is the year that the hands pulling tomatoes from the vine uproot the deed to the earth that sprouts the vine. The hands canning tomatoes are named in the will that owns the bedlam of the cannery. This is the year that the eyes stinging from the poison that purifies toilets awaken at last to the sight of a rooster-loud hillside, pilgrimage of immigrant birth. This is the year that cockroaches become extinct, that no doctor finds a roach embedded in the ear of an infant. This is the year that the food stamps of adolescent mothers are auctioned like gold doubloons, and no coin is given to buy machetes for the next bouquet of severed heads in coffee plantation country. If the abolition of slave manacles began as a vision of hands without manacles, then this is the year. If the shutdown of extermination camps began as imagination of a land without barbed wire or the crematorium, then this is the year. If every rebellion begins with the idea that conquerors on horseback are not many-legged gods, that they too drown if plunged in the river, then this is the year. So may every humiliated mouth, teeth like desecrated headstones, fill with the angels of bread. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of our organizers, Dr. Hannah Moekel-Reiki.
Thank you very much. I really have not done much. I dragged in one BSL person. I too chose a German philosopher. I have no idea why all that period is coming up. His name is Karl Popper, and he wrote a book called The Open Society and Its Enemies while Hitler was throwing his bombs on Europe. It was published in 1945 in London. In 1988, he was interviewed by an American magazine, and they reprinted that in 1916, right before the elections. Popper is interesting because he has a slightly different approach to a theory of democracy. He's very much in tune with Immanuel Kant. If you ever have the chance to read Immanuel Kant's piece, Perpetual Peace, I strongly recommend that, in which Kant emphasizes the importance of the rule of law. So here it goes. My theory of democracy, I have to read little snippets, and please apologize if I turn the page. My theory of democracy is very simple and easy for everyone to understand. But its fundamental problem is so different from the age-old theory of democracy, which everybody takes for granted, that it seems that this difference has not been fully grasped. The classical theory is, in brief, the theory that democracy is the rule of the people, and that the people have the right to rule. From the point of view here adopted, the important thing is that in practice, the Athenian Democrats regarded the democracy as the alternative to tyranny, to arbitrary rule. In fact, they knew well that the popular leader might be invested with tyrannical powers by a popular vote. The Athenians were right. Decisions arrived at democratically, and even the powers conveyed upon a government by a democratic vote may be wrong. It is hard, if not impossible, to construct a constitution that safeguards against mistakes. This is one of the strongest reasons for founding the idea of democracy upon the practical principle of avoiding tyranny rather than upon divine or morally legitimate right of the people. In The Open Society and Its Enemies, I suggested that an entirely new problem should be recognized as the fundamental problem of a rational political theory. The new problem, as distinct from the old who should rule, can be formulated as follows. How is the state to be constituted so that bad rulers can be got rid of without bloodshed, without violence? This, in contrast to the old question, is a thoroughly practical, almost technical problem. The modern so-called democracies are all good examples for these practical solutions, even though they were not necessarily conscientiously designed that way. For they all adopt what is the simplest solution to the new problem, that is the principle that the government can be dismissed by majority vote. And for this reason, I think that I may call the theory of democracy, even though it is emphatically not a theory, but rather the rule of law that postulates the bloodless dismissal of government for majority vote. We say only this very imperfect, okay. We do not even say that it will always be right democracy. We say only that this very imperfect procedure is the best so far invented. Winston Churchill once said, jokingly, that democracy is the worst form of government, with the exception of all other forms of government. And this is the point. Anybody who has ever lived under another form of government, that is a dictatorship which cannot be removed without bloodshed, will know that a democracy, imperfect though it is worth fighting for. It's my great pleasure to announce the musical break with Gregory and Madeline Golda.
She goes on. singing and competing with cookies. It's fun. I'm from Sacred Heart University. I don't know if you know this, but we went to an all-singing curriculum a little while back. So they gave us guitars and let us free in the classroom, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Students are really responding to it. It's nice. So I didn't know if I was going to have the courage to do an original, but you guys are pretty great, so I'm going to do it. This one I think fits in pretty well. I wrote this song before our current era, and it's called Unreasonable Expectations, and it's about demanding what you dream. Here we go.